Welcome to your online coffee break, where we discuss bite-sized topics that inspire, educate, and entertain. Here's your host, a software innovator, award-winning marketer, and astronomy and space buff, Chuck Fields.
Hello, thanks for joining me today for your online coffee break. Today I'd like to welcome my special guest, Butch Patrick. Butch became known worldwide as the iconic TV character Eddie Munster, the wolf boy with pointed ears on the Munsters. But he started off way before that, and he's been up to a lot ever since, including his own coffee line called Deadly Grounds Coffee. I ran into Butch at Louisville SuperCon a few weeks ago and was fascinated to hear his story. I'm glad to share it with you today. Hey everyone, we have a fantastic coffee giveaway for you today. We're giving away some of Butch Patrick's Deadly Grounds Coffee. It's strong and it's delicious. And all you have to do to enter the contest is to share this episode on social media. So share this episode on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter by January 15th, 2019, and you just might win some of this delicious coffee. Again, share this episode on social media by January 15th, 2019, and we'll see if you're a winner. Thanks again. Now back to the show.
Online coffee break.
Butch, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure, Chuck.
Oh, it's an honor to have you here. Now, Butch, we recently met in Louisville, Kentucky at their SuperCon event. And that
was a great show too, wasn't it?
Oh, it was so much fun. It was a great meeting you. And what I love is you were sharing some great details. And, I want to congratulate you for, being sober now for 8 years. And you're also a cancer survivor. And wow, just each of those experiences is powerful enough on its own. I just can't imagine what it was like to go through both. I just wondered what advice we could give to those out there who are going through their own struggles right now.
Well, I'll tell you, the thing that got me when I was out partying for over 40 years. So, at the time when I went in, I was offered an olive branch by the gentleman that owned the place. He was a Munsters fan. And the place came to me very, it was almost like a divine intervention. A friend of mine opened up a Yellow Pages, and this place called Oasis just was the first place he saw on the page. So, he, it wasn't A, B, C. It was this Oasis. And he called him. And the admissions officer, Stacy, said, "Oh my gosh," she goes, "you're going to have to talk to Jim, the owner of the place, because he's been looking for a child celebrity to sponsor because he wants to get the word out about this terrible epidemic that's going on." And he thought, kid actors are targeted because they grew up in a sort of in a not a sense of entitlement, but they grew up with everybody giving them whatever they wanted, and there was a sort of a sense of they could get away with stuff and not have to pay the consequences, which in a lot of respects is true. But for me, what happened was, what I can tell your listeners is the main thing that got my attention was the education that you're not weak. It's not a strength situation. It is a disease, and it can be addressed and it can be combated if properly, if you're educated to the situation. And that's what got me, was the education process that allowed me to look at things clearly. And then secondary, the fact that there's a master plan and you're right where you're supposed to be in life. So you're not like, for me, it was like looking back and thought I had wasted my entire life. That's not the case at all. They gave me the tools to look forward and not to be looking back over your shoulder and doing the coulda, woulda, shoulda situation.
Right.
More so looking forward and saying, this is where I go from here, and what good can I do, and how can I help others and be of service.
So yeah, it's just a wonderful outlook. I just love that. And just when we talked to the convention, I just thought that was just so neat. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Now, you mentioned, obviously as a child actor, you got a pretty early start. I'd almost love to go back there. And as I understand, you were just 8 years old when you made your acting debut in the film The Two Bears. What was it like acting when you were 8 years old?
It was great. It's funny, too, because I actually started a little bit earlier than that, 7, but doesn't, by the time I'd actually started the filming, I think I did turn 8 years old during the summer. And for me, it was just something unusual to do, like a field trip, maybe for a kid in a school. Something, I didn't look at it as a career of acting. I looked at it as something that would be fun to do and I look forward to. And I was kind of bored in second grade anyway, because I was kind of wise beyond my years and wise beyond my years. And the funny part about it is I immediately took a liking to it, and I got along well with the adults around the place, and they used to call me a 39-year-old midget because I acted so old for being such a young kid.
See, I think that's wonderful too. And, you worked alongside, like you said, the adults, some incredible talent. I mean, there was Judy Garland, Micky Rooney, Walter Brennan, Burt Lancaster. What was it like working with these? I mean, were you starstruck, or were you just 8 years old and, what did you think?
Well, the three rules, even as a kid, you learn them really quickly. It's you have to be prepared, know your dialogue, know your line, be professional, and you have to do that, which was good for me being older, acting older than my years. I looked younger than I actually was, so I would be playing 8-year-olds when I was 10-year-old or 11-year-old,
Yeah.
and then mentally I'd be 15 or 16, so it worked out really well. But the main thing is once you get to the studio, you don't really look at the people as a star power thing. You look at them as just another person holding a script in front of a camera that you have to read dialogue with and do a scene. And then when that scene's over, you're done with it forever, and you go on, and then you find another scene to do with another actor, and you do the dialogue thing again. And it's kind of a system that, at least that I fell into, that I just wasn't too starstruck by any of it because, well, number one, I was very young, and it was hard to have established a starstruck mentality at that point.
Right.
I mean, I enjoyed meeting Walt Disney because I knew who Walt Disney was.
Wow.
And Disneyland, but I didn't really know the person. I just know that this was the guy whose name was attached to the place that I liked the most. So that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Sports legends and stuff, meeting people. I met Wally Schirra, the astronaut, came on the set of the Munsters.
Ooh,
I knew him because I was a huge, astronomy books in my pocket and a telescope at home. And
you're speaking my language now, Butch. This is awesome.
Yeah, I know. I know that. So, for me, that was, Wally Schirra, he's the only guy to fly in all three birds.
Right.
That was huge, So those are the kind of things that I gravitated towards. The acting stuff and the movie stars, I never really was starstruck. It was more of a job, and we just did our job, went about our business, and then at the end of the day, we went out the studio gates and entered the real world again.
See, I guess that's what impressed me the most about you, too, because you had some great projects, even before the Munsters. I mean, you started in General Hospital. There was a Kellogg's award-winning cornflakes commercial. How do you land such great projects at that age? How did you just get it? You seem to understand it so early.
You have an agent. The way my agent came about was accidental. My little sister was having some photos taken. So a gentleman that wanted to be mayor of the city that we lived in thought getting my dad's endorsement would be a good way to become the mayor. And what better way to do that than to appease his daughter, his lovely daughter. I was adopted. I mean, he liked me too, but they were going after Michelle. And I went along for the ride, and what happened was the pictures that the guy took of me caught the producer and director's eye in his window as he was walking, as they were walking down Hollywood Boulevard, and they just happened to have this movie, and they just happened to need a 6-7-year-old kid, no experience needed, and it really was a series of, in the terms you'll like, is the planets aligned.
Yes.
And something special happened, and I've got this first little part, and I worked 6 weeks, and I was with Eddie Albert and Jane Wyatt and Shuby Sales and Brenda Lee and Nancy Culp. So it was a great little start of the movie to get my feet wet. And that's what really helped the most, because by the time that movie was over, I was not a seasoned veteran, but I certainly wasn't a rookie anymore.
That's true. Now, this was all before 1964, which is when, of course, you landed the role as Eddie Munster. Now, the Munsters is still one of the most popular series in history, and I understand tired of talking about it for a while, but now you embrace it. Looking back, what do you like the most about being part of that series?
Well, it's funny, when I wrote my book, Munster Memories, which was basically sharing all the great stories people have shared with me about growing up with them and having an extended family, but my job was the Munsters. So my favorite memory wasn't really on the Munsters, although I did enjoy the work and I enjoyed riding around in the cars. But my favorite thing to do in that 2-year period was to explore Universal Studios when I had free time, because that's the best studio in the world, and there was always 30 or 40 productions at some point of during the production schedule, whether it was just the beginning or the end, but there was always some place to go, and there was always some famous people and some interesting things to see. So that was my favorite thing to do, was to go explore.
Which I think that's still my favorite thing to do whenever I go to Universal Studios. I love touring their lot, just seeing everything going on. I think it's fantastic. Now, even if I may, even this late, 55 years later, 60 years later, the TV and movies, it's still magic. People still flock to the movies. They still get excited when they meet a movie star. They still, it's something to do with that art form that people just can't get enough of it. See, I think that's great. Now, I want to ask you too, looking back, what was the toughest thing you sort of alluded this earlier about being a child actor with such fame.
The toughest thing?
Yeah.
Well, for me, the professional angle, it was really hard for me to cry. So I would always try to avoid parts that required crying because I was not a good crier. Some kids could cry at the drop of a hat. For me, it came difficult for me to cry on command. I'm an emotional person. I'll cry at movies, and I cry at sad things that occur. But for me to just turn on the waterworks, it was kind of tough. So I shied away from the emotional stuff. And I usually played a kind of a bratty kid. I mean, the Munsters was one thing, but a lot of times I would play a tough guy, and tough guys didn't cry. So it was like I usually didn't have to cry. I remember one time I had to cry in the Monkeys, and they gave me some capsules. Oh God, what were they? Crack. So it would make my tears. So it was like an onion. It helped me cry. But the thing is, the toughest thing probably. Let's see. That would probably be it, though. That's crying.
Yes, you could probably take lessons from my wife because she can cry at the stop of a dime. We'll be watching a commercial, 30-second commercial.
Yeah.
I'll look over, she'll have tears streaming from your face. I'm like, how do you turn it on so quickly? She should have been an actress.
Well, and another thing, an extension of that question is going back to school, kids by nature are just kind of, I wasn't bullied because I wasn't physically assaulted or anything like that. But you go back into a junior high school with 3,500 students of all ethnic backgrounds, and you go in, and everybody's curious to know what the guy from the Munsters is doing, and they kind of crowd around you, and they would be the point of their interest. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So you had a lot of trouble with kids not wanting to go to class because they would rather hang around the nutrition area and see what Eddie Munster's up to. So what they did is they threw me out of school to eliminate the problem, but I didn't want to go to private school, so I went back to school and weathered it and survived it, and that was probably the toughest thing for me outside the business. In the real world, was adjusting to all the kids wanting to find out what it's all about, and kind of like zingers and not physical abuse, but a lot of little snide remarks and stuff.
Yeah, see, I couldn't imagine what that would have been like. Now, one thing that I really got a kick out of, if I can bring this up, is a lesser known fact about you is that you lived in a very special house with your grandmother in Macon, Missouri. Can you tell us a little bit more about that house?
I own that house now. I lived in it right after. It's funny. I was living with my grandmother in Illinois before the Munsters. I left her and went to Hollywood for 2 years, and then when I came back to visit her, she had moved from a little tiny place to a great big huge house in Missouri, which I then stayed with her through the 8th grade. And it was a haunted, not a fake haunted house, but a real spirit infested house. A lot of stuff going on there. So now it was built in a vortex. I wound up buying the house a few years ago to save it from the wrecking ball and restored it, but it's now for sale again because honestly, I'm never there. And the house really requires more work than I can do. So what I did is I got it prepped to be livable and to save it from the wrecking ball and made it ready for the right people to come in and take on the restoration. So that's what I'm doing.
See, I think it's wonderful. And you mentioned, you're never there. It's like, you are so busy. What keeps you busy these days?
Well, I bought the Munster Coach and Dracula, the two vehicles that were on the Munsters, which were like the coolest hot rods on television. It was like the first real family vehicles that we used. George Barris created these for the show before the box deal and all his other great creations. But I go around the country and I specialize in automotive events where we work with racetracks, car dealers, car shows to do media and publicity and put cars on display to bring people out to the event. And then while we're there, we do merchandise sales and post for photos and interact with the people.
So that's fantastic. Now, I understand you also have a coffee brand that we're actually giving away on this episode called Deadly Grounds Coffee. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I was at a convention, and a gentleman who owns Deadly Grounds was there doing taste testing, and he started talking to me about wanting to do a celebrity roast, and he was thinking about Linda Blair or Elvira, and I kind of stepped in. I said, well, look, I actually own a Dracula. I live in a haunted house,
Yep.
Deadly Grounds. We could do a commercial with me pulling up at the Munster Coach to get a coffee or this or that. So I convinced him to make me a roast, and what I do is he did, and I've been now, it's part of my inventory wherever I go. We sell it on the website. It's not in stores. It's a small run, but people love it. It's really good stuff, and It's funny when I ran into you when I saw your cap, online coffee break.
Yep.
I go, well, there's a small world.
Yep.
I have coffee and I want to be online.
And it's great coffee, and we're just excited. So we want to get this out to our listeners out there. So if you like coffee, Deadly Grounds Coffee. That website, I believe, is deadlygroundscoffee.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, you want to go to Munsters.com.
Munsters.com. That's right.
Deadly Grounds doesn't sell it. I'm a private label. Deadly Grounds, if you like my coffee, you want to go to Deadly Grounds, feel free. They have like 12 really great roasts. Mm-hmm. But the Deadly Grounds Dracula Dark roast is only available through me.
Excellent. So the Dracula Dark roast is available at Munsters.com.
And you liked it.
Oh, yes. It's delicious. Now, we talked about all the events you're going through. I was going to say, what else is coming up for you in 2019?
Oh, goodness. Well, as I travel around the country on the ground, we're going to start between the weekend deals that are already pre-booked. We have 3 to 4 days of travel time. So I want to start stopping along the way and find interesting Americana, small situations that would be interesting for people and do a live stream video show on kind of like an American Pickers with the cameras in the cab of the truck. Nice. But we want to stop and visit either something to do with veterans or Americana, or maybe where some movies have been shot, something interesting, maybe some haunted houses, maybe some ghost stories, something along the way that would be interesting stuff to put out on the live stream show that we want to do. I also have a friend in the big studio business, the real network stuff, that is developing a show for me and Lou Ferrigno, because years and years and years ago when I first met Lou, I always thought it would be so funny. The movie Twins had just come out.
Yeah.
And I thought, wouldn't it be funny for me to do a show with Lou Ferrigno where I hire him as my personal trainer?
Excellent.
Because, he's the big green guy and I was the little green guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so Lou and I became friends like 25 years ago, and I finally found someone that thought it would be a good idea to develop a show. But what we're going to do is I'm going to hire him as a personal trainer, where I'm going to be like a rich entrepreneur living in Hollywood, ex-child actor who hires Lou. Then during the training regimen, we notice that people notice that you guys have some similar characteristics. And we do one of those Ancestry.com things, and we find out that we're related somehow. And the bottom line is he's health and fitness, I'm clean and sober. So between the two of us, we try to help the world achieve their goals while having a friendship that was sort of born in Hollywood.
Wow, I love that idea, Butch. That sounds fantastic. I cannot wait to hear more about that one. Wow.
Well, we have really good chemistry between us. We get along great. We're very good friends, and I think it'll transfer well. I think people will actually see that as a very funny, interesting dynamic that those two would. Not only do we get along, but the idea that we both have something to offer the world and that we're working together. I think I can see potential there. At least the studios feel so.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Well, Butch, I wish you the best of luck with that project. And again, I just want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. Thank you so much.
It's been out of this world.
Online coffee break.
Wow, I really enjoyed my conversation with Butch today. Hope you did too. If you'd like to learn more about what he's up to, just go to his website, Munsters.com. I want to thank Butch for joining us today. I want to thank you for joining us today as well. If you'd like to comment on today's topic, just go to our website, onlinecoffeebreak.com, or give us a call at 317-862-4700. We'd also love it if you'd follow us on Instagram at onlinecoffeebreak. And we'd appreciate it if you'd share this episode with your friends or rate us on iTunes or your favorite podcast application. Thank you so much for joining us today. See you next time. God bless.